Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. We're here with the Skull Keepers, and we're going to be talking about a great event that's happening with 13 of these ancient skulls coming together in New York City on October 10th, the weekend of October 10th, 10-10-10, and it'll be a great festival of high energy and multi-dimensionality. We're going to have 13 skulls together, and that
Or more.
Or more.
Probably
There will
more.
probably be more than 13.
Plus, we'll have contemporary skulls, and we'll build a field like New York City hasn't seen.
A field on 10-10-10.
And we need that because
Yes.
of the situation going
Yeah.
on in New
Right.
York. That's
Yes,
But-
brilliant.
It's a reflection of coming together
Coming
as a
together.
consensus
Mm-hmm.
with our unique individual pieces.
It's amazing, especially on this alignment date of October 10th, 2010, the 10-10-10, with these skulls and all of us and probably a couple of hundred more gathering. We will create a vortex that will really lift the city and the planet, I think.
Protection.
And more, and opening and awakening.
Healing.
So what was the story of these skulls?
Well, one of the primary powers that the crystal skulls have is the fact that they're made from silicon dioxide crystal, natural quartz that's found in the earth. It's so powerful that, in a sense, we make our computer chips, memory devices, it stores information, it amplifies, we have communication devices made out of the same substance. Well, all those properties are in the crystal skulls themselves, and the ancients knew of these particular powers, so to speak, and they were able to access them through sets of rituals and intentions, as opposed to our technological rituals, shall we say.
They really are living entities. I mean, crystal is in a way a living rock.
Consciousness, yes.
Because it holds consciousness, crystals. So
It has the original template of what's considered in physics the prime radiant, which
Yeah.
is the all that is. So it brings us to that still point, that neutral point where everything is possible. And a lot of shamanic practices with crystal skulls have, not only is it a connection to their ancestors with that particular lineage or tribe that's been downloaded through rituals, but it is also considered a connection to the ancient ones. The ancient
Yes.
ones are the ones, many names for them, but basically the ones who were said to have seeded the earth with human DNA. And modern shamans now, they use the crystal skulls as a activation and reflection device to their own brains.
Yeah.
Because really part of where our destiny, which is our future going, is the activation of different brain centers.
So how would I
This is a tool for
activate
that.
my brain? I mean, you say it's like a computer, but we have to turn on the right program to activate the connection, or is it just opening up psychically?
I would say part of it is opening up psychically, finding a portal to go through within the skull. Everybody that works with the skulls, it's different for everyone.
And each person's different. I
And
mean,
yes.
I get people to open to love, and that's the key. People talk about misusing the power of the skull, but from what and sure, anything's possible, but there's a certain level that you can't reach in the skull unless you're able to feel a certain vibration of love. And it's like that's their password, that's their protection, and the bad guys can't fake it. You have to have that in your heart. She talked about it going inside of yourself, and my work really revolves around raising one's own vibration. Synergy said to me, the earth does not need healing in the way that you humans understand. It's you humans that need healing.
Exactly.
And there won't be peace on earth until there's peace inside of us.
Right.
So, from my feeling right now, it's almost as if it depends on where you are in consciousness. Like if you wanted to go into the 10th, 11th, 12th chakra, you could tune in to the vibration of the skulls and help you access those portals, those dimensions, so that you could actually experience the higher dimensions and then bring them in.
Yeah.
If you're there. If you're not, if you're on your first, second, and third chakra, you can do that as well.
So when you see these old like skulls that aren't yours, is it like an old friend? I mean, you have your child, but then you have your friends.
In this case, yes, but not all. It depends on the skulls that come up.
But this case is an old
yeah.
friend. And for you, how do you
May
feel
I?
about? Yeah. Oh, well, sure.
Synergy. Sure, go
Sure.
ahead.
No. Synergy knows Kirby.
Yes.
What, tell us how you approach a skull, Kirby.
Cautiously.
I will, basically, I'll play with it tactily. I'll warm it up. I'll just perceive it through my kinesthetic senses first. And then sometimes I'll put it on a light box and I'll stream different colors of lights through it and see what happens in terms of an activation. What happens is when you blend crystal and light, it reflects the state of our light body. So we're actually engaging our own light body. We're seeing a mirror of our own light body. When we're in our own light body, that's when we're free to go to these multidimensional places. So that's basically how I work with these, and then see where it takes me. I usually have an intention also.
Oh, setting an intention.
Setting an
is
intention, whether it's a healing intention or for some particular information about a subject. And sometimes you'll get a collage of things and you'll just pick it out and then it'll make sense later or something. But like dreaming.
Wow. Wow. And these little miniature skulls, do they do anything? Like just resonate with these because they're modeled after.
Well, a lot of times people will take small skulls like this and they'll put it next to one of the ancient ones and they'll have a kind of a download conversation so they can take a piece of that back with them.
Oh.
What do they call it? Morphogenic. It's morphogenic.
Right.
These things talk with each other. They resonate and
They
transfer
sure do.
information.
They're experts at networking
It's
Yeah.
always around.
and cooperation.
Yeah.
What do you get now from Synergy? Does he have anything to say?
What do I get now?
Or just go ahead, do your thing with it.
No, it's just
Oh, do you, so you, yeah, what do you?
Extreme pleasure and satisfaction that this is happening.
Oh.
Just a sense of fulfillment that what it was created for is being fulfilled through you, through all of us. So the acknowledgement of that and the active engagement of that is just wonderful. So it's that sense of contentment and fulfillment. I'm getting a lot of Africa on this right now. Something about Africa, African plains. So not sure what that means, but
That's interesting.
it is interesting.
Do you,
One of the African indigenous grandmother, one of the 13 grannies,
Bernadette.
said that she said that Synergy appeared to her and was talking. It was the first time she'd seen a crystal skull. She
Right.
called Florida Mayo through her interpreter. They were saying, "Oh well, we need to support the crystal skulls more."
when was that?
This was a couple years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
'cause
And then I spent some time with them, did some private work with them last fall where they really, I spent enough time where they could experience that the skulls are a positive force doing the same thing in the world that they are. Because a lot of Native people have an interest in skulls, but again, they've lost a lot of their history or their lore, and so there's a lot of superstition. We've been westernized, every one of us, that Hollywood says that skulls are evil, and that is not what the ancients, even as 100 years ago, they weren't seen as evil. Memento mori, remember death that you may remember life. And it was not a symbol of evil or doom. It was a symbol of making sure that you use your life wisely, love wisely, live wisely, laugh.
skulls were the reminder of living life fully.
Yeah.
With joy.
with
joy, of course, with joy. And you also say the skull is a being. I guess you feel that way too, because you're the and they talked to you and they told you to come here to the studio. Thank you. But, what else? What other kind? Well, where did you get this one from? And because it's a great story, if you can tell.
Synergy was given to me by a man I barely knew. I didn't want the skull. I wasn't interested in the skull. I told him no, thank you.
You didn't want to have anything to do with the skull.
Well, I didn't have anything against it, but I don't believe in wasting things, and I couldn't see what I would do with it. I was more interested in angels and lucid dreaming than I was in crystal skulls. And so when he was really insistent, I told him that I would have to go home and sleep on it and think about it. And I went home and the way that I tricked myself into taking it, and I really believe I tricked myself, I really thought that it came to me because it knew that I would give it to whoever it needed to go to, because I didn't have an attachment to it. And so
I'll take it.
At that time, she didn't
at
have any
that
Oh,
I do know that at any time it could say that it wants to go with someone else, and you
and
have
you would
to,
do that?
of course.
You would? I
It's
mean,
my job.
so this guy, where were you when this guy approached?
I was in Tucson. I had 5 galleries, and I was buying for the stores, and it was one of those strange things where my schedule opened up, which was very unusual, and I just ran into him, and he started talking, and I saw that he had the skull, and I thought that he was selling it, and I thought that was gross. So I thought, why would somebody sell a sacred object? But it happens all the time.
Right. So
Long story short, I did take the skull thinking I'd have it for a very short time, thinking that it wouldn't disrupt my life too much, and went back to him and asked him where he got it, and he told me this story that I didn't believe.
yeah.
He said that he's part Chilean and part Swedish, and his mother's family lives in Chile, and they have some relatives down in Brazil. He would trek the Andes, and he said that he was somewhere near Bolivia and Peru. He's not totally sure where. He stayed overnight camping with a group of natives, and an old man gave him the skull with, again, he didn't know him.
An old man in the Andes,
Gave him the skull. The guy's grandson told him that the skull said he'd be coming, and that
Wow, that's a
this is the
story.
history of the skull. He also gave him a document at that time, which he kept. I don't have the document, but it's still in Sweden.
But didn't you say there was something about the Pacific, South Pacific?
Yeah, he said that it had come across the Pacific in a reed canoe, stopped in the Hawaiian Islands, and then went into the northern Andes with a people called the People of the Sky, the Warriors of the Clouds, who the Spanish called the Chachapoyu. But they don't exist anymore. But a lot of the natives in the area, the remnants of them, many of those people in Central America and the Yucatan had crystal skulls. And so people started literally coming just out of the woodwork saying, oh, well, the skull's awake, we need to sit with it. Native people. Still happens.
And so do you go down there and sit with people?
No,
and,
I can't take the skull, like Shauna Ra can't go into the Yucatan because the government would like to own it. Well, I really didn't believe that the story could be true until I was contacted by a tribe in the South Pacific who said, well, we sent this skull across the Pacific in a reed canoe.
They contacted
They
you?
contacted me.
How'd they even know?
Well, because the skull was carved originally as a twin, and they still have the twin, and the twin told them where I was.
The twin psychically told?
Told the shaman.
Really?
And they've contacted me many times and shown up in places that I've been. And
this tribe from the has contacted you
Very-
and has shown up.
right, and I said, well, certainly if the skull had been in the Hawaiian Islands, the kahunas would know that. And then I met some kahunas who said, oh yeah, the skull was in the Hawaiian Islands, and we have a cave here called the Cave of the Ancestors. That's a secret cave, and in it is the reed canoe that the skull came across the Pacific in.
But was it Lemurian originally? that you
That's
think
what the
it's
tribe says, yeah.
Lemurian? And also talk about how you got the name Synergy.
Well, it said its name was Synergy, and I thought it was a stupid name. I thought, well, Shauna Ra sounds mysterious, Max is so powerful. Synergy sounded like a technological name or something. And it said, well, that's the quality of the energy that I manifest on the earth at this time. It said it had been called other things, but at this time it wanted to be called Synergy. Well, when the tribe contacted me, one of the first things I said is, well, what's its real name? They said, well, the closest English name or word would be Synergy. And I said, well, what, it said it had other names, and the most ancient name that they called the skull that he knows of was the flame of life. So
this was used in the ancient tribes as a ceremonial object that they would meditate with?
yes, and the people of the sky would, about every 5 years, take the skull down to the Nazca Plains. They would have these ceremonies on the 13th full moon, And it was a ceremony to celebrate the gratitude for being allowed to be on the earth. And there'd be 5,000 flute players on these plains. So that's the type of ceremony that skull was used for. And I've met a number of descendants of different tribes in the area, and you know, they have stories, and they'll sit and hold the skull and cry, talking about stories, you know, that they've heard. That wow, you know, they're holding part of their own history.
Wow.
I did offer the skull back to the tribe, by the way.
You did.
Synergy has writing on the bottom.
It does?
Right, and I just finally, after years and years, we had a linguist, an expert in Ogham. That was the closest anybody had come to. They said it was a runic language. And the tribe has a lot of artifacts with the same runes, and they have no written language. It's all oral history. And they said they did not put that on there. But we just had it translated into the runes, which of course is, who knows, seems to be a list of the qualities the power object has.
Right, right.
It's very
All kinds of
interesting.
symbols emerge from these things.
Yeah, and when you put
Sometimes
it
they're
on a
hidden.
special light and you shine it through the runes, then the inclusions inside create other runes. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Really interesting, yeah.
Instead of a third eye, this one has more of a fourth.
You'll see here, there's like a little triangle, and sometimes when it's photographed, you see light going into it. It's interesting.
It's different, the one-on-one experience as opposed to the two together. Do you think these guys like being together?
Yes?
Are they talking to each other?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You don't hear them?
Do you hear that? I don't know. I mean, there seems to be something cohesive about this.
Yes.
You think?
No, it's really remarkable. I mean, I'm just feeling really high energy. I'm
They
really
talk
good.
about parallel lives and grids. It all happens at once. It's probably, and it depends on how you read it and where you're at in terms of what you're experiencing.
In a certain way, everything's happening at the same time.
Are you getting something particular from Shana Ra as you being a caretaker that it's...
Yes, in fact, I had a couple of people, one gal actually got a hold of Kirby, and she wanted to know if we could charge a crystal of hers with Shana Ra. She has a big, huge crystal apparently buried in her backyard, and she wanted to do an equinox ceremony. And so when I spoke with her, I told her that, and Shana Ra was saying that he needed to actually go there.
Shana was telling you that, like
And
psychically.
I don't know how to explain that to you.
Okay, I think
Telepathic,
I think I get what you mean.
Because I wouldn't normally, you know, I think we're more opened up now to actually listening. They've always probably been talking. Anyway, so brought Shana Ra to her home, and we did this equinox ceremony, and it was, we were connecting ley lines.
From different parts of the world.
From
we're
different parts of the
connecting lines, yeah.
I really feel that Synergy and Shana Ra are doing very similar work.
Well, I'm
and
going...
the ley lines, the grid system of the Earth, it's a real focal point in the next 2 years for crystal skulls.
Well, I'm going to England next week to see the crop circles, so maybe...
I'm going in August.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But maybe this energy will be used to activate certain formations that the Earth needs, because I really feel like I'm getting charged up here.
You are. It's in your bones.
It is. Well, there's a resonance within the bone structure.
And what you're getting is exactly what happens. People start being around these, and they start getting visions and ideas of what they can do to integrate in their
exactly.
own way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crystal skulls do certain things pretty consistently. They focus energy, reflect it, amplify it, attune it, transform it, transmit it, and store. So I keep a little list like that, and I think about if it's really true they do that, what could you do with them as a tool of spiritual awareness? So you could say they're very powerful, or natives call them power objects, but to me, they're the most useful as a tool of personal spiritual awareness.
Well, how would you use it as a tool of, what would someone put their hands on it, or...
You don't have to touch them. They put out a field in a laboratory. The field that Synergy puts out is at times 10 or 12 miles one way. I would assume that it's the same with Shana Ra. They don't put the field out all the time, but when they're interacting with Earth energies, it could go out much farther than that. Put them together and they amplify things.
But the skulls, you're saying, sort of have an intelligence that then directs its own movement because they're here to share this with the world.
I think there's several layers to this, and there's probably more that we don't understand. They are multidimensional objects.
Yeah.
There's the quartz itself. There's the potential of information having been downloaded in it. Most natives that I deal with across the world say that they hold the information and records of 13 different solar systems, hence 13.
Wow.
And I think that they act as a focal point for higher being. And
So there is a higher beings
like a master or
that are connected. I mean, I feel something. I mean, I feel like a buzz. I'm getting a buzz from this.
people talk about misusing the power of the skull, but from what and sure, anything's possible, but there's a certain level that you can't reach in the skull unless you're able to feel a certain vibration of love. And it's like that's their password, that's their protection, and the bad guys can't fake it. You have to have that in your heart. She talked about it going inside of yourself, and my work really revolves around raising one's own vibration. Synergy said to me, the earth does not need healing in the way that you humans understand. It's you humans that need healing.
Exactly.
And there won't be peace on earth until there's peace inside of us.
Is there a way to know actually the age of,
Well, there have been tests, scientific tests, looking at the surface structure of the quartz to see what type of tool marks there are to ascertain when these were made. Both, this skull, Shana and Max, Joanne Park's ancient crystal skull, was tested as such, and they couldn't find any modern tool marks on it, although inconclusive what that means. They just couldn't disprove it. That's one of the ways, but because of the nature of artifacts, and it's difficult sometimes, there's so many artifacts that are recreated or passed down from civilization to civilization. This could be a 1,000-year-old copy of something 10,000 years old too.
of course there's no way to date stone, right?
Exactly. The stone itself is at least 100 million years old in terms of the quartz itself.
Right. But the shape, it wasn't made by any modern tools that we know about.
Exactly. So how you tell is, or how Nick told was, he put the skull in front of a lot of people, independent of each other, and he saw, and he gave them instructions in terms of how to use it, and he sat there and he looked and saw what reactions and responses people had. If it seemed on a consistent level to touch someone's soul, to move them, and have impressions of all kinds of things outside their normal set of consciousness, he deemed it a power object, an object of power, and shamanically speaking. So that's basically how these are determined.
And by the way, the research he did with students, they never saw each other. It was very well set up. They viewed the skulls and they made notes, and then the next, the students were kept in another house somewhere, and the information became repetitive as far as what they were seeing and what they were feeling.
Confirmed.
They confirmed, yes.
Well, this is a skull, Kirby. Talk about this.
This is a plaster cast of the Mayan skull, the original Mayan skull that Nick did a lot of research on. It was one of the most powerful skulls that he and his researchers said that they encountered. So this is a plaster cast of it. I made some little smaller versions of them.
And and what happened to that original crystal skull?
It was lost. It was actually traded for some legal services to a lawyer, and then it just disappeared.
Was that Nick traded?
No,
it was the original owner who traded it.
The original owner that brought it to my dad, and my dad had an opportunity to work with it and use it for, I think it was over a 3-month period or something to that effect. And then he gave it back to the owner, and then the owner, I guess, sold it or...
And we lost track of it.
Yeah.
And there's one in the British Museum, right? A crystal
Yes.
skull in the British Museum, and they don't let that one out.
I don't think so.
No.
There's one in the Smithsonian
In
and
the
one in
Smithsonian?
the Paris Museum.
Oh, really?
And that's why the other thing that's so important here is, like Sherry was saying, that Shana or Synergy can go back to the Yucatan or Mexico because these people would want to take the skulls. But we're doing something with the skulls. They're meant to be with us or they wouldn't be.
Right.
You've got the skulls in the British Museum and the Smithsonian and other places that nobody has access to them for any healing,
Right.
planet, personal, or otherwise.
Good point.
Huh. So you know what's so weird about this skull? It has the shape of a human. I mean, it's like I was saying, the sutures, the irregularities in the actual skull. Someone, whoever made this, put that into this skull. It's so.
I do think that they were created at a time when human form was more fluid than it is now, and if there's records in there, and I think there are, I've seen it, like what Kirby and Michele say, it's very consistent experiences over a wide range of cultures and people. That information is in there about our past. Now, you sit down with an astronomer that knows how to ask questions about the solar system. I don't know anything about it, but the skull does.
How does this? So
The information's in there. It's in that skull too.
Just like any computer, their computers have, quartz chips in them for running all kinds of things. My father also believed that they were, that they acted like computers, and this is many, many years before we had cell phones and the internet, and and all these things that are available to us today. And he felt that there was, with the visions and what people saw in the skulls, that they're here trying to almost make us aware so that we don't do the same thing we've done,
Right.
In the past.
Well, culturally in the West, we view skulls as the symbol of death, of mourning, this kind of thing. But in shamanic cultures, it is actually the opposite, where the skull is representing new beginnings, new life. So
And remembering how precious life is. Don't waste a day of it.
thank you for watching. This is Alan Steinfeld, and I hope you come this October 10th, October 8th, 9th, and 10th to meet my good friends Synergy and Shana Ra at a gathering that we're having in New York City. If you want more information about that, go to my website, newrealities.com. Go to the Edgar Cayce Center, NYC. All these websites, you'll find information about this event, and you'll be able to share in this experience of feeling the vibrations of these amazing beings. Thank you all.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for watching, and this is Alan Steinfeld, and email me also about if you want more information at newrealities@earthlink.net.
Beauty all around and sorrow too. I felt all alone.